One big joke. It's a fucked up world. Here we are in. I ain't going nowhere.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Reason Reborn. I am here with my co-host, Mr. Cardiac Soul, and I forget to change my name always, but it's fine. I can't think of anything clever, so I'll think of that while we're talking. So I'm gonna let Mr. Soul host the show, as I have not been keeping up as much with the news this week. I have to say, I've been dealing with some craziness, although I've been kind of abreast of some of the weirdest things that have come up. But I'm gonna let you lead off. What topic should we start off with this week that stuck out to you at least?
I will say, as I sip on my very relaxing tea here, one of the things that I'd been keeping my eye on for a few days was Facebook's decision when it comes to their Trump ban. For those of you who forgot that we had a psychopath as president not that long ago, he was at one point banned off multiple social media accounts for his role in helping incite the riots on the Capitol. Twitter, Facebook, many others that we don't really care that much about, but they kind of stayed unified in that stance that, like, this is a bridge too far. I believe the Twitter ban is for life, but on Facebook, it was always meant to be a temporary ban. I suppose the leadership of that company kind of punted that decision off to some other body they erected for this kind of decision making. And I believe it was by this Wednesday they were going to make some kind of decision. And the decision was essentially, y'all got 6 months to decide. So it's essentially an extension of the ban while they kind of punt the decision back to Facebook. Because I guess nobody wants to take any fucking responsibility for anything.
Yeah. I didn't know why it was such a big deal that they had to go through all that for this. Like, Facebook's a private company. They can do what they want. If they wanted to let them back, so be it. I mean, of course, I'm sure people were going to be upset, but not many people use Facebook like they used to, for one. And two, like most things, I doubt they were going to have this huge jumping of the ship if he was still there. I'm glad they did uphold it, because God only knows what we would have to deal with in the media with them covering his social media again. That is something I do not miss at all. The fact that this guy had so much influence via social media. Just let him go to Parlor and chill there.
I'm a little disappointed in the delay to make this decision. I think it's easy to just say, and not just because, I'm some kind of filthy liberal and, ooh, fuck Trump, but he was causing serious problems. You know what I mean? Like, the riot on the Capitol was no joke, and he was the main reason that happened, him casting doubt on the election in general, sowing those seeds of mistrust in the process that we're still reckoning with to this day, because you still have states trying to audit their own fucking ballots in ridiculous ways.
Yes, Arizona, with those weirdos that they got to do that shit.
Searching for bamboo. We can touch more on that in a second, but Jesus. I mean, he really did contribute to a violent historical moment, really. Like, what I remember, one of the things people pointed out back when we had that attack on the 6th was, even during the Civil War, the Confederate flag didn't, reach the Capitol like that. That moment, I know it's still kind of weird for us to think about, especially because it was recently, but I'm pretty sure that will go down in history. And he was part of that. So it shouldn't be a huge point to just say he's off, he's done, whatever. I think there's two hard things to think about. So I know even before these bans went through, because there were discussions about whether or not Trump should be banned off Twitter, for example, because he was constantly stopping all over the terms of service, let's say. And there were debates about whether he should be banned back then. And the comfortable thing is we all say these companies are private entities and they can do as they please, and that is certainly true. But I think when we do that, we kind of ignore what might be a bigger, I'm not sure if it's fair to call it a problem, but in our current society, being on the internet is one thing, but like social media wise, communication wise, we've really kind of collated it to a few spots at Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I wouldn't count Twitch just yet, but I mean, like, being able to communicate digitally is very important now. And it's not like there's a public space that's simple where you just do it. Like, I've seen people who don't like social media in general and still feel compelled to have a Twitter for, say, business purposes or communication. Like, it's this weird, pervasive thing in our lives. And that's not to say just anybody has, any right to do whatever they want, but I don't know. It doesn't. It is a private company, but it doesn't feel that way sometimes. I'm not sure how to put this. There's something weird and uncomfortable about the way
the problem with social
company
media
exists.
Yeah, the problem with social media is, especially with something like Twitter, where I feel like Twitter did a lot to try to like set the standard for, I guess you could say, user empowerment, for lack of a better term, because it was all about, like, you could say what you want, all you get in 100, like, make it count. People see your 120 things. They were kind of pushing that whole, like, express yourself, like, whatever, in whatever way thing when it first came on the scene. And as opposed to Facebook, where Facebook was more of a, like, connect with people type agenda.
Right.
So they kind of have set the stage now for the way that most social media has gone now, because as you can see, Instagram, TikTok, it's all about people trying to, like, grab attention and build, like, a meta around themselves so that they can become a gravity well of like people's attention. So
and the structure of how we use it too is a little, because it's like anybody can join. It doesn't cost anything. So mentally, I think a lot of us feel and think about it almost like a public square where you can just kind of walk in, because there's no real, I mean, there are terms of services that you can violate and all that stuff, but you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, and it is a company, definitely. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying, like, oh, they don't have the rights or they have to honor the First Amendment and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't apply to businesses. That applies to government making laws. But it's like we just got to let this thing, like, seep into our lives and never really thought about the implications of that fact and how we use it, and how, more and more having some kind of social media presence is becoming, I won't say a requirement, but just a part of modern life that you can't really just escape.
Yeah. No, I say it all the time. It's become, it's this place where everybody is vying for as much attention as possible, and they don't care how they get it. That's where, and it's helped popularize troll culture. Where people, and I don't even want to call it troll culture. I just think it's just people being ignorant just to get some attention. Because people will say and do anything, they will intentionally go out and do toxic things to get the attention, and it is kind of transferred into other platforms. Now, I mean, there've always been, like, huge attention seekers, people who have used media platforms to do that, but I feel like social media, Twitter in particular, has helped people hone that. Twitter and YouTube are the biggest offenders, I think, when it comes to those things.
it's not even just individuals who are trollish too. It's like Russia, for example, with its efforts to spread misinformation through social media. They'll target specific communities, like communities of color. Even white Americans, to kind of stoke the flames and make us fight a little more. Like I know there's like this knee-jerk reaction to say, like, we don't want the government coming into all this shit, and I get that, but I think that's part of the thing. Is like, we need to have a proper discussion on as to whether we should have like laws or some kind of standard, because it is, while I agree that like Trump is an easy case of somebody who should be banned given what he was doing, it's like, it is kind of weird that Facebook is like, as a company, as a private company, well, publicly traded probably, but as a company making this call that has such big political implications. It's like, are you guys, it is their property, but it's like, it's weird that you guys are the ones making this call, not like lawmakers or anybody like responsible to us. I don't know what to do about that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, but no, that's why I say though that YouTube and Twitter kind of really established it for Russia to even step in, because it made it kind of like, it kind of gave them the inspiration, because they knew people, this is the type of things that people are like into, they know what grabs people's attention the most. People like the drama, and they just went along with it and fed it in political theater and other areas. Just like, I hate to keep bringing this up, but it's the reason why we get things like release the Snyder Cut and like right now Dogecoin to $1 and things like that. It's because everybody can find a way via bots or just organically to establish a foothold and get people to like think that certain things are what they should be paying attention to or what they should care about.
Yeah, definitely. And it's quick, easy, cheap. It's not like you have to, spend a bunch of money trying to go into, like, if you're in the political realm. Like, if you look at Trump, all Trump really does is like tweet things. That's free. It's like you had to spend a bunch of money showing advertisements on TV or the internet, or if anybody still listens to radio, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, it is a low-cost thing that pretty much anybody can do. It has a non-existent barrier of entry. Yeah, and another dynamic to this too that I find troubling, not just the ideas of having to reckon with how this technology in our society are supposed to coexist and what kind of laws should be erected around that, but the fact that this is even a discussion, and it has been a discussion before, really bothers me, because if Trump had just been some dude, I feel like they would have just banned him. There wouldn't have been a talk about it. It would have just been like some automatic process that said, nope, fuck you. Or maybe not. Maybe they would have just ignored it, whatever. But like, it wouldn't have, if they decided that he was a troublemaker and they paid attention to it, they would have just banned him if he wasn't such a high-ranking political figure. And it sends the wrong message, I think, that if you have enough power or socio-political influence, somehow the rules don't apply the same way to you. I was listening to, what's her name? I think Rachel Maddow. She did this like 7-part podcast kind of thing. It's called Bag Man the other day. And it was about, what's his name? Nixon's VP, Spiro Agnew. And it was talking about him.
Yeah.
His legal problems because he was accepting bribe money and all that shit, handing out government contracts and all that. And, he got some kind of deal. So he never like went to jail, never had to pay that money off. He just kind of resigned as VP. And, they were talking to, like, some law professor was like recollecting talking to his law students around the time. And they were asking like, like, what the fuck? He broke the law and nothing happened. He just kind of quit his job. He didn't go to prison. He didn't have to pay back the money, blah, 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 at least not at the time. Why is he getting off like this? And I remember like leading up, to that decision, there was always this weird thing with the people like handling that case where it's like, it's weird to deal with because he's the VP. He has this kind of presidential protection bubble around him. And I do think that is deeply unfair and problematic, not just in law, but also on Facebook, where it's like, if you're important enough, somehow the rules don't apply to you, even though we all keep saying, one of our core values as a nation is nobody is above the law, right? So like, that's part of the reason I'm so disappointed in Facebook punting on this, because you should set the precedence and, adhere to the standard that rules apply to people.
Yeah, no, but see the reason it works for political people even more so on social media is that it kind of works for everybody if you get enough stature. Talking to somebody about cancel culture, which I always say there's no such thing as cancel culture. Because personally, I don't think anybody necessarily ever truly gets canceled. You either face consequences and you deal with them forever, or you deal with them a certain amount of time. But there's no such thing as canceling people. Like, consequences are consequences. That's just the way it is. But consequences aren't as deep as they maybe used to or should be. I don't know which is more true, because I've seen many people do fucked up things and come back. Like that YouTube guy who's boxing now, Logan Paul. He's continually doing fuck shit in his life. And this guy is selling out pay-per-view. People buying pay-per-views to watch him fight. He ain't canceled. He's actually made more money since he became a problem to people, because people keep going back to him and finding a reason to get back to him. It's the same with Trump. People, even those who don't like him, they let him become that gravity well. We can't stop talking about this dude. He is not, like, as much as people love Obama, he's not a fucking like 24/7 conversation or multiple times a week conversation. At best, he comes up in the political arena when Republicans want to make a point about, well, Obama did this, Obama did that. But beyond that, he is not the scope of conversation. Guarantee you're going to get at least 2 stories about Trump a week from every news outlet. I literally just saw one where somebody, like CNN, said, like, there's an ongoing problem with the White House lawn due to Trump. What the fuck? Really? Like,
I don't know what's funnier about that. The fact that it's like, that they're petty enough to report on something like that, or the fact that he's so shitty he literally even fucked up the lawn. like you literally couldn't do anything right. But yeah, like I'm not a content creator on Twitch and whatnot, but I have heard the scuttlebutt around there that there are times where like a channel might get banned or something, and they've complained that this much larger Twitter person who has like a much bigger following doesn't get into that kind of trouble, and their argument is because they bring in Twitch more business, so they're less hesitant to attack them. I don't know to what extent that's true, but I can certainly imagine that there would in fact be an incentive not to go after super big Twitch people if they are bringing in that kind of viewership. Yeah, there's definitely an advantage, a bit of protection once you hit a certain level of notoriety that is not enjoyed by most people. Again, I think that's why Facebook should this decision shouldn't even take it until now. And now we're kicking it another 6 months. Like, kick the fucking guy out permanently. That's it. He is still a problem now. Like, he's still out there talking about how the election is rigged and all this shit and soaking up trouble.
Yeah.
And maybe him doing that isn't the same thing as like inciting the violence on the Capitol, but like, I don't know.
But I mean,
go ahead.
Something that we were talking about earlier, the Liz Cheney thing, it shows up there too. It's actually like gotten to a point where he's affecting other people's careers. Like Liz Cheney was considered the third top Republican in the House of Representatives, and now they're removing her from her spot because she spoke out against him.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point to like widen the conversation from social media in general. I remember a couple of years ago, I've been saying this every once in a while ever since. I had said that Republicans would come to regret, hopping on the Trump wave. That in 2016 they figured, all right, this guy's sweeping in, he's getting people excited, whatever. Maybe we can get some, court appointments out of him, get some laws passed, or tax breaks and whatever passed for the rich. But whatever their goals were, they figured that he was a useful idiot, right? And so you had people who had pretty much ridiculed him during the primaries suddenly hop on board. Ted Cruz being a famous example. He's now that dude's literal bitch. So I said, that, you're going to regret allowing Trump to kind of take over your party like this because he's more and more becoming more popular than the rest of you. You're just kind of like giving him the power of your party, and you're going to fucking regret that. Yeah, I was underestimating this problem though, because when I said that, what I just meant was they're going to have a hard time against him politically. If, especially if he decides to run more often. He's already out of the White House. We're 4 years away from another election. He talks his shit, but he's causing major problems without really doing anything anymore. Like, the base is just so loyal to him that, in Liz's case, merely not agreeing with him about an actual lie, about a delusion, is costing her job. And her position. She still is, she's still.
But it may cost her a job because they're pushing somebody. They're going to push somebody against her in their next election.
Sure, she might get primaried next time around, but it's like, again, she's not like some unknown. She's top of the Republican Party. And I'm sure Trump says whatever bullshit about her he says, but it's gotten to the point where the cult will just act on its own, independent of her, because it's not like she became, the white version of AOC or something all of a sudden. It's like her values haven't really changed. She's a fucking Cheney, for crying out loud. She's just refusing to say the moon is made of cheese. And that alone has torpedoed her in a way that like nothing else really has. That's scary. When the cult leader does not have to command the cult and they just respond. Like, what the fuck do you do with that?
But yeah, no, I mean, and I wasn't necessarily trying to transition away from social media, but it's just like the outcome of his usage of social media and becoming this such galvanizing force, partially because of it, translate into real life. Just like, again, the Logan Paul thing. This guy is now being considered a fucking professional boxer. How? I have no fucking idea. He's fought like other celebrities and won. And he's getting like this huge buzz. Like, what the fuck? But it's the same thing with Trump. It's like Trump had become this social media thing. And now he's reshaping a political party. Like, there are people who've been longtime like conservatives, Republicans, who now are shifting to push weight behind the cult of him to keep their jobs. And there's a serious fight within their party on like, what is their identity? Are we just going with the Trump people, or are we fucking, actually going to have political ideals, which is not really something to say since do they really have political ideas? I don't know. But at least they are far away from the pretending to have it and are full on starting to go to this the whole like Trump bullshit. And it's just crazy.
I've heard people say lately, pundits in the news and whatnot say that pretty much the only Republican ideal at the moment is fealty to Trump. And it's funny because I know we've talked a couple times about how they don't even really talk that much about, religion or anything, or, kissing the military's ass or economic things. Like they always used to run their mouth about like, oh, the deficit is blah, 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 blah. Like they barely talk about that anymore. It's largely about Trump. So when people started saying that line that, their only value now is loyalty to Trump, it's like, you're kind of right. And that's kind of weird. That's why we're seeing, all over the country, look at this spike in voter suppression laws. Why? Because Trump said he didn't lose. And if he didn't lose, they must have cheated. So now they're trying to make it so, people can't cheat by actually going out to vote.
I think there will in parts to that there's fear, but yeah, a lot of it is spurred by the fact that he said they cheated. Even if you take into consideration that, a lot of it is the fear of they're going to lose their jobs. He has helped give them a reason and a reason to get people behind what they're doing. Even then, if they do have their own agenda, he is going to be the front face, the catalyst for it. Anyways, like they cannot break apart from him no matter what. It is so fucking strange.
Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have reduced that to just.
But no, some of it is that. I mean, some of it is like people are just like, look at the shit that's going on in Arizona. We talked about that before. How they fucking like are having a recount. This is like what, the third, fourth recount, and
that's not the only state.
What in their own private firm, which is not a real firm. It's just a bunch of wackos with guns who are fucking overseeing the count, and they're trying to fuck with shit. And it's just like, yo, what the hell?
We need some kind of guardrails against that, because like these actors are, you said they're wackos. Yeah, they are legit conspiracy theorists who have a clear bias here. Like that dude who, can't remember his name, but essentially I guess they were looking for bamboo, and he had like this weird tirade about how I guess people of in East Asian regions or something use bamboo for paper, and it's honestly incoherent. Like I couldn't even. I listened to him describe this shit. I'm like, I can't even tell where this started, where it ends. I couldn't understand the middle. Like, what is this guy talking about? You don't even have to have like a good conspiracy theory. Just like the randomest shit. People talking about this. Blah, blah, blah was associated with Antifa, with Hugo Chavez, with... And these people are allowed to like have access to actual ballots. Like they're lunatics who are getting to operate in real life politics for no reason other than Trump claimed that people cheated him out of the presidency. Something there has never been any evidence for. And yet here we are. What? Shit was in November, right? 7 months later, still dealing with this. People are still trying to audit this, still trying to prove that Trump losing was some sort of conspiracy. When does this stop? Are we gonna be doing this by the next election?
Probably at least till midterms. Sadly enough.
I think that's part of the problem. Like, I don't know where this stops, because again, Trump, like a lot of the base, I guess, likes Trump. So these are just, it's just this theater to kind of show that you also love Trump, and like, hey, if I love Trump and y'all love Trump, transitive property, you should love me, right? So they're willing to do so much just to prove to their base that they're like a Trump guy or gal. I think it wasn't that long ago. I think McCarthy went to Mar-a-Lago just to like kiss his ass.
Yeah, it was somebody else too. Was it Lindsey Graham? No, it was McCarthy. You're right, because he put out that tweet about like he's doing great and all that. It's like, really? Who cares?
Like, think about that move. Like, he's top of the Republican Party, and he went like some sort of dog to lick his master's feet in Florida for no reason. The guy is not even president. Like, he's just a citizen at this point. He's just a dude licking his wounds in Florida. He has no actual political power or say. And yet you're still treating him like he's your boss, like going and reporting to him and trying to make sure you're on good terms. And like,
yeah,
so
like
I think you said it. It's like somehow he has more influence with them than he did before.
yeah, no, like and like people are still, even though he's not on social media, people are publishing his memos that he's writing. Like, why are you publishing these memos?
I don't know what to think about that, because even when he was getting banned off social media, like I definitely support that happening because I do think he was a problem. But I was also concerned at the time that, you know, just because I don't see him on my Twitter feed anymore, am I getting a false impression that he's dead and gone and he has some sort of like, I don't know what I thought at the time, like he's building up some kind of secret right-wing militia while none of us are paying attention because he's not in our face right now. It's not to say that I want him in my face just so I can watch him, but I do, I do feel uncomfortable with my back towards him. I'll put it that way.
No, but I mean, just in general, when a president leaves office, you don't get this much attention on that person. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have all of this attention on Obama when he left office, or at least on him particular. The most you got is, God, I miss Obama. But nobody wasn't going to him or going to see, like, did Obama tweet today? Did Obama, like, write something today? What did Obama have for lunch? Where did he go? Who was he with? Like, blah, blah, like, we weren't on it like that.
Yeah, there's probably too much attention to him, but, you know, at the same time, most human beings aren't as attention hungry as Trump is and was during his presidency. And two, there are current and continuing investigations and legal battles around him and the people around him, like Giuliani's in trouble now too, right? So it's like, I say he's not really doing anything, and in a sense he isn't, but we still have plenty of problems caused by him that we haven't dealt with, him and the people around him, that are still ongoing matters. So I think that's part of it. But yeah, they probably don't need to be like responding to his dumbass memos and things.
No.
He set up, what is it? The office of the former president of the United, whatever he called it. Like,
God. Yes.
Like even that move, like who does this? And of course, again, Republicans will go there and lick his boots. I was not familiar with, I think her name is Elise something, the woman who's primed to replace Liz Cheney. Damn, I just looked it up a little bit ago too.
Yeah, you had said her name. I mean,
Elise Stefanik, I think.
Yeah.
I was not familiar with her, but I heard a little coverage about her earlier, and they were making this argument that like she's essentially been shamelessly willing to kind of change her messaging and her stance. So once Trump hit the scene, she's just like, all right, now I'm a Trumper. Apparently she has not always been like that. She's been more moderate before, but their claim was that she saw the value of, you know, she saw where the winds were blowing essentially and hopped on that Trump wave to great benefit, I guess, because she's primed to become third most powerful in the fucking party. And I just bring this up to say, a lot of people will talk about how the Republican politicians are just, bowing to Trump and asking why. And as pathetic as I think it is, and as confusing as it is, it's also, unfortunately, I think the rational move, because when you see when some politicians kind of like try to stand up against Trump, even like Liz Cheney, in such a minor thing as the moon is not made of cheese, she's getting fucked over. Like, the consequences of saying anything in opposition to this guy are so high, and the benefit, the gain from essentially associating yourself with him, seeming connected to him at all, is so fucking high. Because I remember, I was in Florida. I grew up in Florida. I was there, I want to say, until like around the Democratic primaries or something like that, around that time. And I remember DeSantis, coming up. And he had some ad on TV, I think, where like, I think it was Sam, right? He was like teaching some kid to say Trump or some dumb shit like that. There's like one commercial that happened to feature something about Trump. And the fucking guy just like skyrockets in popularity. And now he's the governor, like
Right.
merely having such a small association with that. I do think Trump endorsed him or whatever after he saw that shit, but there's so much to gain from being associated with him and so much to lose if you're not. The incentive structure there is fucking horrendous. So yeah, they're spineless, but they're also probably making the correct political strategic calculation there.
I disagree on that, because it's short term. Well, yeah, I disagree, but I disagree only because I know, like, what I was going to say is a short term thinking. I was like, well, that's what they typically do anyway. So they're pretty much just going with what they, in an odd way, what they normally are liking to do. It just seems to be at a much extreme level, because they'll tell you that like water is like purple in so many ways, but they won't tell you that water is an illusion like they're doing now, if that makes sense. Like they've taken it further than they normally go, but they're still going to a place what they're used to. It's just at a much more extreme level. So I don't know. It's fucking maddening.
Sure. I agree. I guess I meant it is immediately strategically advantageous, because if they don't bend the knee to him, they will be primaried pretty quickly. Like somebody else will come and take their spot, because Trump is so popular in that group now that if you're not with him, somebody who is with him will come up and challenge you, and they'll have more popularity behind them. And even if they don't, maybe a Democrat wins. Like you'll lose too much support to really succeed against either a Democrat or a Republican that's further to the right than you. So there's this. It's the same thing I was saying back during the the riot attacks. Essentially, like there's no, or excuse me, not the riot attacks. The what was it? The votes to like deal with the ballot counting and all that shit to overthrow the election. Pretty much, is like there's no real benefit to them actually voting to confirm Biden, because there's no benefit. Like if they do that, they're gonna look like a traitor to their own base. And it's not like they're going to score points with Democrats, because they're assholes. So
Right.
The Democrats might be like, well, you're a little bit less of an asshole than I thought, but somebody who's not an asshole would be better placed there. So it's not like they're going to start voting for them just because they do that. It is a very fucked up incentive structure that they've created for themselves. So back when I said they will regret allowing Trump to get this much power, this is not exactly what I imagined, but I guess still technically right, because they have pushed themselves into this kind of corner now. So
yeah, it's We're gonna have to deal with this longer than we did with the Tea Party. That's the sad part.
How do you get out of this? Because I'm sure a lot of people would just say, like, why don't the Republicans just grow a spine and tell Trump to fuck off and blah blah blah? And I'm looking at their attitude now, and I'm like, if they did that, they'll just like anybody with the guts to do that would just be kicked out and replaced with like a Trump soldier at this point. Like you'll just get more of them.
It goes back to the social media thing though, where like you were saying about how Twitter allowed people so much freedom and things like that. You let the inmates run the asylum. And that's what Trump helped create with his voters. Though that's the asylum. He got all the super crazy motherfuckers, all the conspiracists, like all the people who don't want to progress and want good old like fucking pre-civil rights America and all that shit. Like all those people get a foothold on the say. He inspired them to like he did. Oddly enough, he has influenced both parties probably more than anybody ever in history because he influenced the fucked up people on his side to actually come out and vote. And then when he started doing batshit insane stuff and fucking up the like country, he influenced more liberals to like say, yo, we should have voted last election. We're gonna vote from now on. So, but as far as like the Republicans, yeah, he pretty much has done more than like Sarah Palin ever could have imagined to do. Like he literally solidified fucking psychos into coming out, and that's why he got more votes than Obama in this past election because crazy people decided to vote more.
True enough. I'm a little surprised at how loyal a lot of them have stayed to him. Not just the politicians, but I mean like just regular voters. People who are like, no, he didn't lose. That they fucking stole it. Blah blah blah. They're still talking about him. I had mentioned some Trump paraphernalia to you earlier. It's like the cult didn't die down, really. At least not as fast as I would have expected. Because I figured, all right, what's he's gotten out of office? I remember like last year when he lost, somebody asked me like, how do I feel? And I said, give me about 6 months or so. Because like I know it's exciting, like, yeah, we finally got a president that's not a fucking lunatic, but I was like, I need to see what the temperature of the room looks like after he's kind of been out of the way for a minute. You know what I mean? So I remember telling people like that, like, ask me again in like 6 months or so. And I feel like Biden's doing a decent job. So I feel good in that sense. But I feel a little, I won't say blindsided, but a little surprised by, I don't know how to describe it, like how influential he still is. I really thought his influence would die down a bit more gradually, but more than it has. And again, it seems a little stronger, which very surprising and concerning to me.
Yeah.
What I get for not being psychic, I guess. But
yeah, it's just not gonna go away anytime soon. That's a really bad. Like,
think about the amount of time and energy being wasted doing these audits, constantly recounting votes, this new surge in voter suppression laws, all this resistance against vaccines, which, still floods Fox News even now. Like, just little dumb things he would say have major impacts even now, well after he said them.
yeah,
I've said he's like magic at one point. He really is like fucking magic. Like Hmm. We talked about how they're living in fantasy, essentially. uh, with the idea that Biden cheated to win the election and Trump is still president. I don't know if we talked about it last time, but that thing that was going around that was suggesting that Biden was going to ban meat.
No, yeah.
Like they're just, or that story that, they were trying to suggest that the government was buying a bunch of Kamala's books and leaving them for those kids that are part of the border crisis. Also bullshit. They have no interest in like legislation. They're just diving into culture wars and absolute lies. And I say that to, come to, I can't remember the man's name, but he made the news recently this week, I believe, because we had a politician trying to justify the 3/5 compromise.
Yeah, the Tennessee lawmaker. I don't know his name, but yeah, he was trying to basically. His point was the 3/5 laws did more to help Black people than hurt. Which,
Yeah, he I'm trying to remember his exact justification. Something essentially like they were trying to hobble themselves so that slavery could be gotten rid of through a vote. Or I actually rewatched it a little bit before we started, and my brain already melted. So from how fucking ludicrous whatever that thing he was trying to put together was. But I bring it up to say, like, this is where they are. Like, because first of all, I don't even know why he brought this up. I think that's why I went to go find it. I was trying to figure out like what the context was for this, like why this was even a talking point. And I couldn't figure that out. So it's like they're just running around leaping on any bullshit they can find. True, false, conspiratorial, whatever. Like just running around like they're on drugs or something, not really doing work.
yeah, no. I just sent you an article before we started. I mean, with that guy in Texas who came up with that law, was talking about he loved the terms that he put in that spoke about purity in this law. And then the guy he was like asking questions to was like, do you realize that that was a term that the terminology that you're using was something that states wrote in their like charters and in laws to promote Jim Crow and to promote racism and suppression of Black people and things like that. And the guy, he was like, "Oh, I didn't know that. That's terrible to know." It's just like, y'all really don't understand like what you're doing, do you? I it was troubling because he kept responding like, "Oh man, for real? That's just like crazy." Like, "Oh man, I didn't think of it." But I'm not trying to write it in like for that. It's because I want to influence people to the heritage of state laws, and the guy's just like, "No, that's not what you said means. How in the world did you even come up with that?" Like it. It troubles me the things that they do that they try to, I guess you could say justify um their actions that just continually makes it look worse and worse instead of actually making a point. And I guess it's because they don't really have a point when you think about it. So, I don't know. It's just very, 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 very disturbing. To see. By the way, you're having some weird feedback issues. I don't know if you can hear me right now. Uh-oh, I feel like I may have lost my co-host. Oh no. Well, while he is away getting things sorted, I guess I will try to vamp. Um,
Are you talking?
yeah, I've been talking. Hello? Uh-oh, I feel like his fancy pants computer is falling apart.
Alrighty.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties.
I was like, he just abandoned me.
I tried to give you the signal that something was going weird with my earbuds there.
Yeah, no, I could hear some feedback. So I'm
Do I
assuming
sound
that's
all right
what it
now?
was. No, I don't hear it now, but like when you first disappeared, I could hear feedback though.
Weird. So I missed the last thing you would have said as I was trying to regain the ability to hear.
What was we talking? No, I was just saying like I find it weird that these people, like the guy I was talking about in Texas, who couldn't like, who was kind of in shock to know that the law that he wrote had verbiage from the Jim Crow era, like Jim Crow era slogans and content in it and all of that. And it was just saying how like they try to justify these things by pulling out stuff that they don't truly understand, which actually makes it worse. Like the dude with the 3/5.
I did. I generally just don't understand why they do it. I think that's the thing that gets me the most. It's like, well, because it gets their base all hard, I guess. But it's not like it's pertinent to any genuine conversation. He just wants to come out of nowhere and like piss off black people, and I guess in doing so excite the right. Because I don't think anybody's even come out of nowhere and try to make a point like this for no fucking reason. Like,
Yeah. They're, I don't know. It seems like I would rather you just be quiet and just say we're doing this because we think it's right and leave it at that than to try to explain. Because the more they try to explain, the worse they make things. At least in my opinion. Because again, they don't have any real ideas or laws. They just know how to do things to potentially like obstruct and maintain their position.
yeah, and I guess that is essentially their goal now, right? Is to obstruct and maintain their position. Because I believe it wasn't long ago, McConnell said, "Look, bruh, we're not voting with you, motherfuckers." End of story. I mean, I think he tried to walk that back a little bit and was like, depending on what it is, but he was full of shit. So
Yeah.
and now we've got half of the political structure in our country just literally dedicated to dicking around and talking madness. It's kind of incredible.
It's kind of the same, but just worse.
All for nothing. God.
Yeah, definitely. It is what it is.
If that sounds like, a bit of a somber tone, like, remember, I spent all day, all last podcast essentially having to kiss Biden's ass because, he actually did some work for once. We should have a president actually doing things. So I missed having to shit on somebody. That was the problem.
Yeah, you can shit on Biden, I'm sure.
He's so fucking old. I don't know. Now I feel bad. That was like a mean thing.
He's against legalizing marijuana. There's that. You can use that.
Yeah. What a dick.
Yeah, he don't want you to smoke the good stuff. So fuck him.
Should also do better on the border, dickhead.
Exactly. See, there you go. You can find things to fuck with him about.
That reminds me, I did forget to mention one thing on the social media point, which is I do remember at the time back when these discussions were like kind of starting up and ongoing, I should say. There was this concern that to enforce certain policies and whatnot would be a bit, what's the word? I suppose unfair because I think especially with Facebook, they got to notice like if they dealt with some of this stuff, it would affect Republican politicians more. And I don't understand that inclination to be like, ooh, we're balanced. We're going to treat both sides the same. If both sides don't behave the same, there's no obligation to treat them the same. Like if those rules would have applied to Republicans more, it's because they're breaking the rules more. So
No, life doesn't work like that. You see, laws aren't meant to like address problems. Have you not learned anything from the conversations we had about things like the Missouri Compromise, the Kansas Nebraska Act? Um, you know, all the other like lovely laws that happened in the earlier days of the country to make sure that we can balance. Hell, the 3/5 law, which we just brought up. For those who don't know what the 3/5 law is, by the way, it was basically the South, as per usual back in the day, in the olden times. Their biggest fear was when it came to representation in elections, they didn't think that they would be able to get enough people who were pro-slavery and I forget what the Republican Party was called back then, but pro their ideals um in office. Because generally speaking, more people lived in the North than the South. So the population would have maybe like skewed things and you know they wouldn't have as many seats in the House of Representatives and possibly, you know, Senate and all of that. Because yeah, there were just more carpetbaggers than there were good old Southern boys. And as the country expanded, the fear was that more states would be introduced to people who would move from the North who were anti-slavery, and you know, the South would eventually have to leave slavery alone. So that's why we got stuff like the Kansas Nebraska Act, Missouri Compromise, because they kept doling out states like these states will be slave states, these states will be, you know, free states to try to equally balance it out. Well, you still had the population issue. So the South's pretty much argument was that while slaves were property, they should be counted in the census. But they didn't want to basically count them as full people. So they came up with a 3/5 compromise where every like slave would account for 3/5 of a person. So they can be added to the totals and that could help balance out representation for how many people would be sent to the House of Representatives in the South, because that's generally how the House works in that like instance. You know, how many seats you're going to get is dictated by your population. Just like this year, they just did the census, and I forget how many seats, but they're going to get more representatives in certain states. I think California might have picked up a few more seats, for instance, for the next House election. So that's what the 3/5 rule did. This 3/5 act did.
uh, I find it interesting. Like he's trying to tout this thing, and there's nothing good about it. Like it allowed them to bolster at least a little bit by 3/5 per person their population count for the sake of representation. But it's not like the slaves got to vote. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It was the worst of all possible worlds, and this dude has the audacity. It's not even that I'm just offended based, somebody might hear this and see me and be like, oh, he's black. So obviously, like, not that you have to be black to be offended by slavery either. It's just an ugly thing. But to come out and try to defend something so idiotic and dumb and wrong for no fucking reason, and then say that it was, it helped essentially end slavery. No, maybe the Civil War did, but certainly not that.
Because you still wanted them to be considered slaves. You just wanted them to count in the population.
You wanted more benefit, essentially.
So yeah, it was dumb for him to say that shit. It's dumb for any of them to say the shit that they say, but they keep saying it. Okay. Oh, well, what else are we talking about? Or that pretty much it?
I suppose. I mean, I guess shout out to India. They're really struggling with the COVID issue.
Yeah, well, they have
been for a while.
Yeah, we have a couple of countries that are like kind of having serious issues as we start ramping down a bit more, closing in on, I believe, 70% of the people vaccinated in the country by June. I think was what Biden wanted to have, and it looks like we're trending in that trajectory. Other countries are just still having struggles when it comes to it. But people, please keep wearing your masks. And get vaccinated, all that good stuff. For the love of God, please.
Yeah, we're starting to see some of the benefit here. When I went to get my hair done and shit, that guy was vaccinated. He's like, oh man, get your second, we could do this without a mask and blah, blah, blah. Like,
how is it to get a haircut with a mask on? That's to be weird. Because he has to be very, very careful around the ears.
Yeah. Plus, they wouldn't do the facial hair.
All right.
With that. And, whenever they want to talk and stuff, it's hard to like talk back, especially because I'm not naturally that loud in general, but like, especially with the mask, I was kind of underestimate how much louder I have to talk.
Yeah. We all have the Bane effect.
It's nice and intimidating too. I've gotten used to like every once in a while when I actually have to go out into the world and see another person, like you always kind of like smile or give a head nod or something, and they can't really see most of your face, so the expression never goes through. It's a very weird thing socially.
Yeah, it is.
But still wear them.
Yeah, please.
I mean, fucking deal with this shit.
Yeah, just do the right thing so we can actually get completely out of this. Please.
Then we can go back to the movies.
I'm not really concerned about that. I again, this whole thing has made it to where I'm happy to only be around people who I want to, which is how I've always been, but it has re-solidified my position.
But Stan Lee likes to be around people. And so, didn't you watch the Marvel thing? Come on, man.
I was going to say something, but I can't. I'm going to be nice, respect the dead. And just say, for those who enjoy that, I understand. But for me, please, Disney Plus, still give me the option to pay you a nominal fee, extra fee, as if I'm paying for a ticket to watch your movies. And okay, you're getting a little too far-fetched. You had the Aunt Your Mama thing on, and that was not good.
I think what's fucked up is you only said that because I'm black. Like if If I was just anybody else, you wouldn't have said Aunt Jemima.
I mean, come on. Everybody knows that like thing is synonymous with Aunt Jemima.
Oh, here we go. Here's none. I should have forgot like how to turn this off. I wish, because the society we had during the pandemic and as it was raging, and we were making some social changes. I wish we'd talked more about like, all right, we're going through this. We're trying to figure shit out. Here's what we should definitely keep as we climb out of it. Because the fucked up thing is like wearing a mask has become so politicized, right? And that's part of, when people are responding to Tucker Carlson saying like, hey, if you see a kid wearing a mask, you should call the police. It's child abuse, blah, blah, blah. But I remember,
he's an idiot.
I remember, before the pandemic and stuff, and I guess this feeds interestingly into like Asian bigotry. I would see like every once in a while, like Asian people out there like wearing the mask. I guess when they were sick, maybe to kind of protect other people from their illnesses. And thinking back on it, I'm like, that is really like a value we all probably should have had already. Because I know like when I was going around maybe with like a runny nose or some shit or feeling sick, I didn't really think too hard about how to, like I tried to stay away from people as much as I could, I guess. And I wasn't like sneezing on anybody's face, but like it never occurred to me to wear a mask. We just don't really have that as a cultural thing here. Let me take that back. Where I've grown up, I haven't really seen that as a cultural thing. Maybe other places in America, they do that. But yeah, I was thinking like, yeah, we should definitely just have that as a thing we agree to do. Like if you're feeling kind of under the weather, especially when you're going back to work and going outside, just wear your fucking mask. Try to,
We see it all the time in places like China when people were sick or they put on a mask. It's not a bad thing. It really isn't.
Yeah. And I guess I mentioned the Asian bigotry thing because I remember when this was becoming a thing, like right at the start of the pandemic, I was immediately, because we had heard that it had come out of China. I was like, all right, this is, we know the game here. They're going to use this as an excuse to be racist against Asian people. Not just Chinese people, Asian people in general, because they're racist. So I was already concerned about it back then. And I was like, I remember seeing Asian people around who would wear those sort of, I don't know what you call them, just those masks, N95s, whatever. Just out of like, I guess, a cultural practice. And I was like, that's already going to make it a bit more of a target because people are going to be paranoid about the virus. They're going to be, having their emotions stoked against Asian people. So it's going to be like this nice target on your face, essentially. And I'm afraid that because I think we really should do that.
Yeah, like they're smart. They don't want your cooties.
But I think we should do that as a cultural practice anytime anybody's sick now. But it's such a fucking toxic social thing because, it had to become a political battle like everything else in this country. You know what I mean? Because now I can imagine people being uncomfortable wearing a mask because they don't want somebody to be like, oh, what's they got the fucking plague? Or they don't want some hard right winger coming up and fucking yelling at them like Tucker Carlson told them to do. Like, you've made it uncomfortable to do now. And I think it should have been something we should be able to accept.
Somebody needs to fucking run up to him and scream like rapist or something. He probably is one. I don't know.
Yeah, things like that. Not going into work when you're sick. Like I know people have often said you shouldn't do that, but the reality is a lot of people don't have that option. And we should really push to make it more of an option. I'm just kind of throwing ideas out there, but like on public transportation, like buses and trains and shit, maybe a mask should be a requirement. Like it's not that big a fucking deal. It would help curb the spread in places where it's probably likely to spread. You know what I mean? Like,
especially if you ride public transportation. Oh, by the way, to qualify the Tucker Carlson thing about the rapist, remember Matt Gaetz kind of implicated that they hung out and did shit together. So don't act like y'all never thought about whether or not he is, because even Matt Gaetz kind of hinted towards it. But anyway, No, if you ever read road public transportation, especially a fucking bus during rush hour, nah, bro. Yeah, you kind of need masks. These motherfuckers be all up on you. It'd be tight. People would be squeezing in. Just imagine having to stand on a busy train and shit like that. Like, if you've never had that experience, God bless you. You're lucky. But having had that experience like for years, man.
Subways, planes, like again, I think it would be a good idea to, I'm sure after a year plus of having to wear masks, there's going to be resistance pretty much from everybody if you don't have to. Definitely too much resistance to make it a fucking law, but like, I was like, maybe it should have been a law that you should have to like, we accept that we have places in society where there's a bunch of germ spreading cretins packed together all the time. We know how viruses work. We should work harder to mitigate some of the risk.
Yeah, that'd be nice, but no. We're knuckleheads. That's it. We're just knuckleheads. The best I can put it.
Yeah. Took the opportunity to learn some shit, come up with some plans, and we did pretty much nothing.
Yeah, no. Again, we get to the 70% in June, people gonna go nuts.
I hadn't thought about that because I guess I figured everybody would be like, a bitch like me and kind of really gently go back into it. But yeah, you're probably right. I mean, hell, they kind of already are in some cases. I heard y'all don't got to wear masks no more.
I'm telling you, I'm already seeing it out there in them streets. I'm telling you.
Afraid they're gonna be like, it's gonna be like the bra burnings. Everybody's just like take off their mask and like throw it in a fire.
Right.
Don't do that. We don't need more air pollution or pollution. The few times I've been out, like I've literally seen like a mask on the ground almost every time somewhere, somehow. And I'm like, bruh, it's supposed to be pretty much attached to your face. Like, how are y'all littering masks?
I know.
And even if for some reason you have to throw it away, because
Yeah, I mean, I understand the masks are disposable, but god damn it. You have to add to the pollution.
Like, it's that hard to find a trash. And like, even if it is disposable, what, you just took it off in the middle of nowhere? You couldn't wear it till you were at least in your trash can or home or something? Like,
nah, I'm done with this. Let me throw it away.
that's one of those mysteries to me that I didn't know. Like, when I made my rare foray back into the world, like, I'm like, what is it people are doing out here? The mysteries of humankind.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, do you want to do the outro since you did the hosting?
I don't have much of an outro. I'm mostly just like tuned out and like, man, look how handsome Loki is. I will say that I've got a couple books on my list to get through. I downloaded one on like the human brain and a couple political pieces. And I've been catching up on comics recently, so my suggestion is going to seem the same. It's going to be like just read X-Men, but at this point there's like a lot of X-Men comics running. And if y'all weren't listening to me before when I said read X-Men, you're kind of assholes because there's like a lot to catch up on. But all that said, I know we not complain, but touched on a couple troublesome topics, from the dangers of social media to the everlasting shittiness of how we handle emergencies like the pandemic. But there is good news. We are getting more vaccinated. We are, for better or worse, returning to what normal life will be like gradually. So
yeah, I get my second shot Monday.
I need to look up when mine's coming in. So, everybody continue to do that. There's talk about us celebrating the 4th of July together. That means nothing to me because my parents are Jamaican. So we never really did that. But for those of you who want to do that and get drunk together because you all need a holiday excuse to get
cookouts.
drunk.
Cookout. Yay. Cookouts are back.
Yeah. Food. Do that. Yeah. There's stuff to look forward to. Is my big point. So keep that in your hearts.
Yeah, and since I know most of my family is not going to get vaccinated, I'll just be the shield, I guess.
Can't you just like get a needle? Well, let me not try to tell you to do a crime.
No, I cannot.
It's a small needle. Like they probably wouldn't notice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, you got to like sterilize the area, I guess. But you know.
Well, one, it wouldn't really work because unless I get the Johnson & Johnson, I'm not going to find myself in a situation where within the 2-week period, I can stick somebody in my family twice. Okay. So I have to make sure it's Johnson & Johnson for one. And then I have to work really hard. There's a couple of drug addicts in my family. I'm sure I can be like, oh, hey, you want to try this drug? They're like, oh, man, let me see how high I get. And they're like, I don't feel nothing. I was like, oh, must be a bad batch. Continue on. Yeah. But
I feel like you're almost planned enough to actually pull this off. So I would just go all the way. Just do it.
But it's just like the rest. Like, how would you get how would you get to that arm to stick it in?
Does it have to be in their arm? Just stick it in their ass or whatever. It doesn't matter.
I think it does.
Do it when they're sleeping. You barely feel the fucking thing, man.
Because I think maybe your arms that travels fast. I don't know.
Look, anybody hesitant out there, a lot of the population has been vaccinated, and we haven't turned into flesh-eating zombies or drop dead yet. So,
yep.
I think it's fair to start taking chances here. A lot of you guys were like, if I get the virus, I get it, whatever. Risks are risks. So, forgive the language.
Which, by the way, before I close this out, that is something that I find it's a ridiculous thing. People are sitting here screaming and talking about how fucking dangerous the the vaccination is and all the things you get done. But you literally have seen the results of what coronavirus can do with people. You're like, I'm good with it. Like, come the fuck on, y'all. Y'all are ass backwards. I swear.
It's totally irrational. Even when Johnson & Johnson was having that problem, I believe it was, 7 people fell ill. At least one died. It's like, when you look at the numbers, it's still
wasn't that they were falling. It was just it was severe blood clots.
Blood clots, yeah. And I think one person died at least. But even if every single one of them had actually died, it would still be far less lethal, far lower chance of dying than the actual virus. So
all right,
I don't really understand people.
There's literally professional basketball players right now that are yo, I can't even play unless I have an inhaler with me. It's a baseball player who had heart damage. It's a college basketball player who had severe enough heart damage from that shit where he's pretty much probably not going to be able to play anymore. No one knows. Come on.
Yeah. Even for those of you scared of needles, it's a small needle.
I'm scared of those things that I took it. I'm a bitch, and I did it. You mean you worse than a bitch? Okay. All right.
I used to give blood quite frequently, so I was like, whatever, bro. I was warned about the needle. I'm like, I'm not worried about it. And then she pulled it out and stuck me. I barely noticed. I'm like, was that the needle? Is that it? That's small as fuck. Now I'm not talking myself up, but anybody who actually does, because a lot of people do have a fear of needles. It's it's not some sort of giant psycho needle.
I didn't even see it coming. I was just sad because I was trying to prepare myself, and all of a sudden I got poked. I was like, oh, what? Okay. Like no, like in the thing that's cool about it is there was no preamble. There was no okay, make a fist,
Yeah, I was
tie
expecting
off
all
and all
that
that.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, they just like poop, like poop. Okay.
And it wasn't like, in the inner elbow or anything where like what to me it hurts more like it was like in the nice meaty shoulder. Like
Right.
it was literally the most painless shot I've ever gotten. I've gotten more painful shots at the dentist to numb me up. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
from bigger needles there that were like, so if that's like a fear or concern for anybody, it probably doesn't get much easier than this one. So.
Yeah, you should be fine. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you again for coming through, watching, listening to the Reason Reborn. Oh, what I was going to say if you had been gone later is working on getting us back onto audio. So keep your fingers crossed that everything goes well, and I can get us back to an audio version as well, so you can listen to it on the go if you don't want to see our ugly faces. So there you go.
I like how he said our ugly faces when he really meets me because like my face is the only one on camera.
Oh, right now, but sometimes I'm there, sometimes I'm there to haunt the people.
Cold-blooded. After I went through all that work to turn my camera back.
I mean, at least you got a haircut. I can't show people this fucking shit. Like, that's what I already told myself. One of the first things I'm going to do once I get that second vaccination is I'm going to fucking find someplace to get a haircut and get one finally.
That's something all you guys should think about too as you get them. What's the first thing you're going to do when you can do it?
Yeah.
My thing is a massage.
Interesting. That would be the first thing I would think of today.
I've had some pain, I guess.
Gotcha.
I've just had to kind of deal with because, muscle pain. Plus, I guess it would be relaxing too, but mostly pain management that I've been putting off since last year.
Gotcha.
So all you guys think of shit to actually look forward to.
Yep. But yeah, so look forward to that. If we can get that back on board and maybe some other things like, we'll see. Anyway, thank you again for listening, watching, and we will see you next time on The Reason Reborn. Peace, everybody.